So this is the lecture 6 of this course, and in this course the main topic we will discuss is about states and operators which have a continuous spectrum, or in other words, there's the measurement values you get from by measuring these kind of these are kind of states or observables where when you measure the measurement, the numbers you get can be anything or any real number by the timing. So they are continuous in that sense, they are not discrete, just like this Stern-Gerlach experiment you did, they were discrete, like plus half or minus half, up or down. It's not like it can be an arbitrary real number. And you know, the large number of things are like that, like for example, if you measure position of a particle, you measure momentum of a particle, you measure angular momentum of a particle, all these things are continuous variable in general, not always. For example, certain things are quantized that we have seen. So here we will discuss, this lecture will discuss that kind of observables or that kind of states. But before that, I want to revisit one of the things which we already learned in previous lectures, that is the relationship between measurements and eigenstates. We already know that when we measure, depending on what we are measuring, the system collapses into one of the eigenstates of that observable which you are measuring. So we will revisit this notion, see once, like consolidate our understanding, and then we will see that in some cases it is not so easy to know that what are these eigenstates and all that. So we will extend this idea without even though it's not mathematically rigorous. So with in spite of lack of mathematical rigor, we will extend these ideas to some cases and make a postulate that in some cases, even when you don't know what are these eigenstates are, we will assume that there are those eigenstates and we will extend our framework for those continuous cases. Okay, so that is something what we will do today, and before that I will revisit once these old ideas which we have already discussed, and then of course I will go to the concept of the operators which operate which generates this kind of continuous transformation of Kates, and we will see what are the special properties of those operators or those measurements in the Hilbert space. Okay, so let's start with by revisiting what we know already. So we know that an act of measurement causes the system to collapse into one of the eigenstates of the real dynamical variable that's being measured. So let's say this is the system, the state of the system which you don't know what it is, and a priori you neither know what are these eigenstates of, if you are measuring this observable A, what is the what are the eigenstates of this observable A, you don't know that a priori. In some cases maybe you know, but then the postulate or what we have convinced ourselves from Stern-Gerlach and all that when you perform a measurement, the system you will discover the system is in one of the eigenstates of that observable with a probability which is the overlap between the state gate and that particular eigenstate with the probability amplitude. Okay, and the probability is obtained by squaring this. Now in the Stern-Gerlach experiment, what happened, that you know that this operator is Sz plus Z plus h bar by 2 minus Z and so on, Sz minus Z is minus h bar by 2. You don't know that a priori of course, but based on the experiment you have established this fact that since after passing through the Stern-Gerlach device SZZ, let's say this is psi, so the outcome has only two possibilities, which is plus Z and minus Z. So that is known by experiment, because if there would have been all these possibility, you would have gotten all the possible lines in between, but the experiment found these two lines, so that's where you concluded there are these two possibilities. So and there is the sequential Stern-Gerlach experiment told you when you put another SZZ plus device, you know these two possibilities are mutually exclusive, which means if something is plus Z, that can be never on minus Z, and minus Z can never be plus Z. So based on that you develop this intuitive notation that plus Z is equal to 1 and plus Z minus Z equal to 0. So you learn that that this is and then you from here you develop the notion of two-dimensional vector space or two-dimensional complex vector space or Hilbert space, where these rays belong, and that is they are mutually orthogonal, they form the basis, and based on the measurement outcome you also deduced what will be the form of this, and this thing nicely became a wholesome picture which explains the experiment and so on, like experiment to the abstract algebra and the presentation, and back to the experiment which explains that. But the point is, this is not always guaranteed to happen, because in a not necessarily in an experiment you will know that what are all the possible eigengates, or you don't even know how many eigengates are there, and if you know how many eigengates are there, what are they. So that sort of information is not so easy to obtain. Even if you some case, let's say in some case you know even the mathematical form of the operator, or you establish how the operator looks like, you cannot find it. Sometimes it can happen even in a finite problem, but sometimes it can even happen it can happen simply because the space is infinite. Okay. So based on that, let me give a more strict definition of an observable, a more tighter definition of observable from what it was. So earlier by observable we meant that an observable is something which you can measure, and a quantity which you can measure and produce, and that measurement gives you a real number. And when that happens, then you know that that job of that observable is to project a state gate into another gate, and that can happen when it is multiplied by an operator or a matrix act on that, and an operator then in the Hilbert space must be a matrix, and that's what all we knew about observables. So there is a stricter definition. So those operators whose eigenstate don't form a complete set is not an eligible candidate to be an observable, simply because of this result. So in that case you don't know what are these eigenstates and all that, but if you know that, well, if you can diagonalize this matrix, then of course the eigenstates will form a complete set, that is guaranteed. But this is a very important criteria, okay, in addition apart from it being real. And the point is that for the observable we don't know that in a priori, from not always we don't know that a priori. Sometimes the experiments can tell us, but not necessarily always it can tell us. Also, even if you leave aside the experiment, even mathematically can you say that this is that case? It turns out it is not. So that is the point. So it's very difficult to establish mathematically if a given dynamical variable satisfy the criteria of an observable in that sense. So now we will rely on this ground of a somewhat a reverse argument. We will say that if a real dynamical variable can be measured, which means there is a real number you can measure somehow, then your theory must have to have a room for that, it being an observable. So that's, you go the other way now. You are now saying, developing it empirically. You are saying, since I measured it, it must be an observable in order that to fit in the theory. Okay. So it is, as I said in the previous point, that it is not always easy to know that mathematically that whether this criteria is verified. So it turns out there is one way which is slightly easier than this way, and that way is following, that if it is little tractable but not always possible. Let's say somehow you know this operator, the form of this operator in some case. Then how do you know that this operator will, its eigenvalues will form its eigenstates will form a complete set? So one way to know this is that take the nth power of this operator, where n is the number of the dimension of that space. So that also again something you don't necessarily know a priori. So and check if it satisfies a polynomial like that. So where does this polynomial come from? This polynomial simply comes from the fact that this operator A has n eigenvalues, let's say C1, C2, Cn to Cn. So each eigenvalue you should be able to write something like this, A minus C1 I times identity. So for n of them together you must satisfy this equation, and when expanded that gives you an nth order polynomial. So that is a check criteria, and how, let's see where it works. So one place where it works simply is look at the sigma z. The sigma z operator square is equal to 1. How do you know that even without knowing the sigma z form? Because you know if you measure sigma z twice, you project your sz square projects to Sz modulo phase factor, but that is not important here, because when you take the square anyway the phase factor cancels. So that tells you the eigenvalues of this sigma z are either plus or minus 1. So now you can construct an operator, a state gate with terms of, so you know this has to be a two-dimensional Hilbert space. So it has two directions to project at, and this projection operator can be constructed like that, just writing 1 plus sigma by 2 and 1 minus sigma by 2. Well, I mean to say sigma j, where sigma j is 1 minus 1 0 0. So this you can check that this is just the projection operator, as you know. So this is 0 0 0, this guy, this is 0 0 0 1, and together they form the identity, which is basically psi going to psi. That's the property of projection operator we learn. So now coming back to the point, so you now believe, like postulate a reverse argument which says given that you can measure something, it must have a complete set of eigengate. Okay, even if you cannot find what is that eigengate, as you will see in a moment an example of a case where you cannot find it. So one more special case I must mention in this context is that sometimes you might see that some real dynamical variable as a result of measurement will never change. For example, mass of an electron, charge of an electron. So they have a non-probabilistic character. So how do you fit those measurements within this framework? So then the framework is to say that if I have a charge operator Q, or in principle if I had some analogous mass operator, then any state possible of the electron is an eigenstate of that. Any state that gives me the charge of the electron. You will see further on this from symmetry arguments on that, and you will see that of course there are various kind of charges you can define, which are like constants of a theory, and that is like an operator. It is an operator which commutes with every other operator of the theory. So that way you can say any state is a simultaneous eigengate between any operator and that charge operator. So that charge operator, so that tells you any state it can be in, any possible state is a eigenstate of this charge operator. So that's why whenever you measure charge you get Q without any probabilistic, because that's the only possibility with 100% probability. So that is the physical way to understand, or that is the way to understand the physical constants like charge and mass of an electron in this framework. Okay, so now let me get back to this statement that every observable can be measured in principle, which means even though you like every observable means any that satisfies this criteria, whose eigenstates form eigengates form a complete basis, and it can be presented as a operator in the Hilbert space. So that is an observable. So any such observable can be measured in principle, because it can be something like that. So then if you try to measure A, it will be projected into that state. So that much is guaranteed. But any measured quantity is not guaranteed to be strictly an observable by this mathematical sense. But even though it is not a observable strictly in mathematical sense, you will assume that it is an observable, because for the completeness of the theory. So this will become a postulate. So that a postulate is something you assume because it fits and makes sense with your other experience or the whole picture, but it is something which you cannot prove rigorously. You cannot prove. So this is one such thing. Okay. Now let me give an example of this. For example, energy of a dynamical system is an observable. Now of course for bound states you know that these bound states are like energy eigengates and all that, but that is not necessarily you can find all the energy gates of a given operator, especially when it is an infinite dimension. There are infinite possible energy values in a system, or even so that is basic. So for example, if you think of an atom, the atom has these various energy level which are discrete, and then after some point this energy level gets closer and some point become continuous. So when you take the electron very very far from the nucleus, it becomes continuous. So that way you cannot never find all the possible energies the electron can take when the electron is very far from it. But you assume asymptotically or in a postulate sense that any state where the energy state where the electron can go is an eigenstate of an operator, the energy operator, which you see is called Hamiltonian, and that comes as a form of a postulate. Okay, so now in that context, let me put a little bit of side question, that what is the most important eigenvalue equation in quantum mechanics to you think as the most eigenvalue equation quantum mechanics. Now historically that equation is this equation, because quantum mechanics, the need of a quantum mechanics was first realized by doing spectroscopy, and spectroscopy basically measures the energy level. So historically the most important equation was this particular eigenvalue equation, where the measurement is energy measurement. But that is not necessarily true for any other measurement. So when you because of the fact that when you have seen this equation so many times, so you might start to think that any particle is always in an energy eigenstate, or like a superposition of energy eigenstate at least. So well, the superposition energy eigenstate is true, but then you might think that because you are measuring energy of all the time, so any particle must be always in an energy eigenstate, and the point is that is not true. And and why it is not true? Because it depends on what you are measuring, that what eigenstate the particle will be, it depends on what you are measuring. So if you are measuring momenta, then the particle will be a momenta eigenstate, okay, not an energy eigenstate. So if you think in terms of this Stern-Gerlach setup, for example, if you measure fast momenta of a particle, then the particle will be thrown into one of its momenta eigenstate with some probability. Then if you measure energy, then it will be thrown into one of the energy eigenstates. So then the momenta will be expressed in terms of the energy eigenstate and so on. So thus this equation has a historically special role. It is not that any particle is always in some kind of energy state. A particle is in energy eigenstate only if you are measuring energy. If you are not measuring energy, you are measuring momenta, then it is a momenta eigenstate. It is like that. So that is a point I want you to understand, and realize that it is, this equation has a historical importance, this eigenvalue equation, only because it was the first thing that was measured, that the energy. Not necessarily this equation is the like true for any particle is like in this kind of state. It is like in this kind of state only if you are measuring energy. Okay. So with that clarity, let's move on to the cases of continuous spectra. It's a kind of scenario where you don't know all the states, and it is impossible for you to know all the states, but you will still make a postulate that this is an eigenstate and this has a complete eigenstate, set of eigenstates. So what are the examples of continuous spectra is like let's say momentum and position. So this kind of measurement. So if you measure position of a particle in a scale, what will you get? You will get like let's say 0.7772 kind of some number centimeter. So this is a continuous number, this is a real number, it can be any number in minus infinity to plus infinity. So a measurement which will induce a real number. So then what can you say about the possible eigenstate of that? So this kind of situation is called continuous spectra. So a measurement produces a number, and that is supposed to be an eigenvalue, and average of that is the expectation value, which is the average of the eigenvalues with the probability of being in that eigenstate. So how to make sense of this within this framework? So for that I will just redefine everything we had done so far in continuous, when the spectra is continuous. So that means there are infinitely many eigenvalues and infinitely many eigenkates. So what will happen when you have such a thing? So you will write the normalization or the orthonormal condition to be like that for discrete case. Here this is the Kronecker delta, and here it is the Dirac delta function when you write the intern, because it's a continuous function. Similarly you will write the completeness like that. Here you will write so the sum will be replaced by if you think in terms of a Riemann sum, so the sum will be replaced by an integral with a d psi prime. So this sum is basically this kind of an integral here. Similarly any state psi is a linear combination of all the eigenkates of the which are the eigenkates of the observable to be measured. So that should be written in terms of this. Again any sum is replaced by an integral with the d psi prime. Similarly the square or the sum of probability is equal to 1 should be written like this, and so on. So like you can figure out how the rest is just, it's just a translation from discrete to continuous, as you know already how to do that. So now here is the important postulate, which I tried to generate confidence about that postulate, and now I will make the postulate. The postulate is that a measurement is essentially a filtering process, which you know of course. A measurement filters out one of the eigenstates, a given measurement. So it is guaranteed that when you will do measurement, you will get one of the eigenvalues in a given experiment, and that eigenvalue is a number. But which eigenvalue you will get, which state it will project it into, that you know a priori before that particular measurement. So if you do a thousands of measurement, then you can of course interpret your result in terms of a probability probabilistic description, where you say this is the probability of finding this the system to be in this state when you perform this measurement, and this state and the probability is given by this prefactor of that state. When you expand that state in terms of that prefactor is nothing but by this inner product, and that will tell you basically, and square of that will give you the probability. So this is the probability amplitude, square of that will give you the probability. So the measurement will select one of the eigenstate of the observable, which is and this is the so even if it is a continuous operator, which means it's an infinite by infinite matrix, and this is an infinite dimensional vector, it will give you a finite number times an infinite dimensional vector, and these eigenstates are postulated to form a complete state, even though you cannot find all of them. So you cannot mathematically prove it is true or not, so you postulate that it is true, and that helps you to build the structure of the theory, and it matches with all the physical phenomena. Okay. So now so any state psi should be expressible in terms of this eigenstate, and how you interpret this dx, then you say this dx is like a tiny detector of width dx prime. So you are saying basically you have a tiny detector, and every point within the range of this detector has the same x prime psi, and the state can be referred as the same x prime psi, but you nevertheless you take this point and multiply it by the width to get whatever happens within this width of this detector. So if I have a screen, if I think of the double slit experiment where you measuring the position, so if I have a screen, in that screen there is a detector which has a resolution or width that is given by dx, and that is how you interpret this summation. Okay. Instead of every point, you sum a bunch of intervals, infinitely many intervals. So that is how you normally define a summation, and this summation can be stretched to integral when this dx goes to 0. Okay. So now that we understood this, so let's stretch this statement into it by saying that in a realistic system, so since an alpha is basically all the possible eigenstates, which is like infinite dimensional object when projected on alpha, minus infinity to plus infinity. So what happens when you perform a measurement? A measurement which when performed at the point x prime. So out of this entire screen, let's say this is the point x prime where you perform a measurement. So you say that in that measurement you don't know with certainty what happens within the width of this measurement. So let's say the width is like minus delta by 2 to plus delta by 2, the width is delta. So then a measurement basically collapses this wave function into this domain. So that is x prime minus delta by 2 to x prime plus delta by 2, when it is summed over all the vectors within this range, which is again another infinite vector in principle, because this even in this small domain this line can be divided with infinite, there are infinitely many points, it's a real line. So now this object is now the assumption is this width is so small that this guy doesn't change within that width, and so you keep it a constant like that, and the vector also neither change. So this is the probability amplitude of finding the electron in that width, and this is the probability for the same. So when you square and sum the probability, you get the property which the probability must satisfy. The sum of probability is equal to 1. And if you are already, you must know this, that this. So what is this object basically? This is a number. This is a number which you get at every point. So this is the x line, this is the x prime line which has infinitely many points, and at each point there is a number, and that a complex number, and that number is given by x prime alpha. So what you call such a object? Such a object is called a function. Okay, you know that already. A function is input of a function is infinitely many point on a real number, and output is infinitely for each point there is a single number representing that point. So what is this function called? This function is called a wave function, that you already also know, that you have already visited this. So now we have developed this idea which we already discussed, that a simple function, a function can be regarded as an infinite dimensional vector space, such that at each point, so each point of this vector space you can think it as some basis, like 1 0 0 0 0 is that point 1.11123, like something like this. Then 1.24 is again 0 1 1 1 1, like that infinite dimensional object. So when you get this this x represent an x like that, so then this fx represent a function which tells you what is the value of this at this each of this point. So it is like f at this point, okay, f at this whole point, now f at this whole point, so like that. So then it becomes also another infinite dimensional vector. So you can say it is like f x at this particular point, f 1.1, and it is 0 everywhere else. Similarly, it is 0 f 1.23, like something like that, and 0 everywhere. So that way you can also define an fx prime also as a function. So it acts like a function in this infinite dimensional. A function is basically a vector, and it is basically an inner product, and so